Hello and welcome to Four Burners. My name is Josh Hell, and joining me this week, please welcome singer, songwriter, all-round good person. Please welcome, it's Hayley Mary. Yay! Hey, mate.
Hey, mate.
How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this.
How are you?
You're in the mid. Let's talk about this new song. EP. What is it?
Oh, a new song. There is future stuff. I haven't announced what it is yet, but I guess one could maybe guess after having put out 3 EPs that I should probably do an album.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that. But is it this weird thing of now?
Singles.
Yeah, everyone listens, like albums are... I'm a huge album person. Like, I like listening to an album, but I think everyone else is just like, oh, we'll just get a single. And
It's
we'll
all
just
about
get songs.
Streaming songs for sure.
Yeah.
And that comes into how you release the songs, how you release the album plays into that. But I'm a rock musician.
Yep.
Like, I just have to do an album.
We're recording this today. Steve Albini passed away as well.
Are we?
Did you know this?
No.
Yeah, 61 he was. He's written this amazing thing about, because you're an independent artist, written this amazing thing about just what a rot the music industry is in terms of the amount of money that A&R people and labels make artists spend, thinking it's, oh no, we're giving you this
Not
money,
their money.
but it's
their
actually
money.
So it's always like
it's a loan.
Yeah, every dinner you go on, you're paying for it.
Yeah,
like
essentially.
every first class ticket, you're paying for it. And because he refused to take points on the Nirvana album, he's like, no, pay me like a plumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if he regretted that.
No, he said he reckons it's like. It's weird that, like, because he goes, taking money out of the bands, like, they don't know that this money, the album might go on and on, and it's their money. I just did my role, pay me like a plumber. It's
Interestingly, as well, is that one thing, this is pretty boring, but it's actually the artist's responsibility to do that accounting.
Yeah.
To the producers, and they probably don't realise that it's actually quite expensive to do that accounting. So it's like it all kind of ends up costing them more than even just what the cuts are, which is a funny, boring little side note.
I mean, I could talk about Steve Albini all day, but I won't.
I think I met him.
Did you?
Well, is he the one that's in Garbage?
No, that's Butch Vig.
That's Butch Vig.
He
I
did Nevermind.
My different Nirvana producers.
So Butch did Nevermind, Steve did In Utero.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both great. I'll take back that. I did not meet Steve. I don't think I met Steve Albini.
That's right. Hey, thanks for doing it. No, we're talking about your 4 burners, and so we can go whichever direction you want. So we're talking health, career, family, and friends. Which one would you like to choose first?
Let's go health.
Okay.
Because you said it first, and it's probably the foundation of everything, isn't it?
Well, your last song, your latest song is about smoking.
Yeah.
And are you a healthy person?
Yes and no.
Yep.
The reason I chose health is today, and this sounds like a cop-out, but I have done it before for long periods of time, so it's probably not going to be a cop-out. I decided to quit drinking.
Oh, yes.
Today. Not because I'm hungover, because I'm not.
Yep.
Normally I do it when I'm hungover, but I have done it I've done it a couple of stints now. I did it for about 11 months once, or maybe like a year, I can't remember, and then I did it for 9 months another time, and then 3 months here and there, and I'm just kind of getting to the point where I actually just really get a lot done and feel a lot better, and almost a natural high that people don't, because most adults in the West have been drinking most of their adult life. Even like I started drinking when I was like 11.
Was that
you don't
kind of
remember
like
being sober and
sneaking alcohol, or
of
was
course,
it like your family though, like, I will have a glass of wine with dinner?
It was less that. I mean, I might have gotten like a sip of beer of Dad's every now and then. It was more like I went and asked the local homeless guy to buy us a cask, and we drank it. So the train tracks, because we were naughty.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because I remember drinking young. I was late for my friends though. Like all my friends have been drinking, and I was kind of like, oh, we shouldn't do that. We're kids. And then
we're cute.
Well, I say that, and then it was like year 10, so 15 was the first time I got drunk, which
it's still young. I mean, it's not. I grew up in like a coastal Byron, which was a 90s style coastal town then, and it was very binge drinking and very party, and all the kids went out and like just partied all weekend and drank and brawled on the streets.
Yep. Yeah.
And so it was just like a totally different kind of time and attitude, I suppose, a bit more like puberty blues or something.
So how many times have you quit drinking then? Is it like 3 or 4 times?
Well, I've had big stints off.
Yeah.
And I've always done great things during that time, like managed to pay off a massive credit card debt, or managed to buy an apartment, or managed to, finish an album, or, like just get big goals done. So I'm like, maybe I should just do this.
Yeah. We've had Adam Richard on a previous episode, and he put it really well. He's like, he also gave up drinking, but he in his brain said, I'm not giving up drink, I'm giving up hangovers.
Well, yeah, it's a bit like that. And the problem is, I don't know, I've done a fair bit of sobriety reading now. And I'm not like, you know, it has to be forever, but I think it kind of probably should be forever. Or at least you should think it's going to be forever for a while, because like it is just a slippery slope. Like everyone's a little bit addicted if they think they need booze to have fun or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's kind of just like a downwards. You're always kind of slowly, the little monster in you is growing and wanting more and more booze, basically. And it's like you're always on a downwards.
My anxiety, and I think it's our culture as well. We drink a lot in social situations because we are uncomfortable being in those situations, and you know, a bit of Dutch courage. That's the whole thing. It's like
but it doesn't make you actually better.
No, absolutely
it just makes
not.
you not care that you're a bit shit.
And you don't pick up when you're being boring or all those kinds of things. And because I don't drink either, but it was that thing of like for the first couple of months going out and going, oh, am I boring everyone? I think I'm boring everyone. And then I realized no one's thinking about me.
They're boring, actually, and you're just perceiving it. Like everyone's a bit boring sometimes, but like when you go out, I guess you kind of like, I would normally have booze to make this not boring.
Yeah.
But maybe I could just go home instead. And there are some things that are actually fun, like genuinely fun. Like weddings are actually fun. Yeah. And you don't actually need to be drunk to be able.
I've been to one wedding sober, and it does feel like I got to about 10:30 and went,
you get tired.
Yes.
And you go home.
That's
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that wedding, I could see the coke was coming out, and you used to see people in pairs walking to the bathroom going, I don't need to be here now. They're all having fun.
This is where it goes.
All right. So was it other stuff, just you'd get more productive quitting drinking?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Like I've got a lot of goals that I've recently moved into self-management.
Yep.
And I'm releasing my record without a record label. So that's a lot more work than most other artists are even aware happens.
Yeah.
Getting my head around all that. It's like I'm learning a lot of different skills and I'm constantly overwhelmed. So I think adding stress to your body by being drunk or hungover is just kind of putting things off and making it confound worse in the end. So I suppose, compound. The problems compound in the end. So I just was like, if I'm going to get any of these goals done, I need to probably be pretty switched on. Yeah. More so than normal.
Yeah. So how's your sleep?
It will get better.
Well, that's the thing. If you stop drinking.
I've got that 3 a.m. thing where I wake up and everything that I should be doing is very obvious at 3 a.m.
At 3 a.m.
And then the day gets you and it distracts you and it's not so clear what you should be doing, and then all these other things happen. And
okay. That's the first time I've never mentioned or never heard of the 3 a.m.
Really?
thing. Yeah.
I've heard about it because it's like the witching hour, right? Yep. And apparently there used to be like it's a natural thing actually, our sleep cycles, that apparently you do naturally wake up around then, and that back even before like the Industrial Revolution with electricity and all that stuff, people used to wake up and like do chores
at
in the middle of the night and then go back to sleep. So I don't know, it's quite ingrained. They've done experiments where people do stir around them, but most people, if they're not really stressed, they won't. What I'll do is I'll think about all these things that I need to be doing, and then I'll get carried away. Yep. And then if you pick up your phone, you're screwed.
Growing up, were your family a healthy family?
Not particularly, no.
Did you have growing up in Byron, what I know of Byron, I've been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I'm sure what I know of it is different to what it's like growing up there. But it's pretty healthy. It's by the beach.
It is now.
Lots organic stuff. Was that what you were growing up with?
That is a side of Byron for sure. And there was the beginnings of that because of the hippies in the 70s and to the 90s when we moved there. But my parents were poor. Yeah. So I get on welfare sort of thing. So it was more probably around lots of drugs without getting too, what's the word? Defaming my family, that they didn't always work above the board jobs, let's put it that way. And so, I knew a lot of people who took a lot of substances. Yep. And there was a lot of drinking, and it was just like a lower socioeconomic thing. And that health thing does come in a fair bit later. Like, yes, there is the hippie stuff and everyone was eating beans and lentils and being vegans and vegetarians and stuff. We weren't, but it was around.
Yeah.
So you had like definitely an earlier exposure to the health movement growing up in Byron. But that health movement, as you see it now that you associate with Byron, is a very upper middle class phenomenon. So it wasn't really what normal working class kids anywhere were like exposed to, I don't think.
Yeah. I also grew up very working class and you have a lot of processed meats.
Yeah, it was like, well, our year was the last year to have the old school canteen. They changed the laws like the year after us. We still had like the meat pies and
so do we.
all that crap. But so they, brought in all the salads and the healthy stuff later. Yeah, it was just a straight up 90s coastal town.
Yeah.
Upbringing, really.
We had hot lunches one day a week in our primary school. Mm-hmm. I would always get 2 pies, eat the filling out, and then fill it up with sauce. The case.
Yeah, wow.
And it's just like so much sugar in that sauce.
It's terrible. I've got to correct myself a little bit. My parents were probably a bit more health conscious than I'm probably giving them credit for.
Yeah.
But it wasn't health like you see as Byron.
Yeah.
It wasn't kombuchas and all that stuff.
So here's something that people probably don't think about. So as a singer, you need to stay pretty healthy so you can control your breath work and all that kind of stuff.
Ideally, you should do that, yeah.
Do you do stuff like do you run? Do you do exercise?
I do. Again, probably not as much as I would like to when the other side of music, which is like the party side of it, it kind of takes over a bit. I do jog. I'm actually quite fit, but then I also allow myself to be a bit naughty sometimes, and
that's all right.
I'm not as good. I used to be much better at all that stuff when I was like touring more.
Yeah,
and it was not sustainable to ever even pretty much I couldn't even drink when I was doing, because I was with Jezabels stuff. I was doing like 100 shows in a year and that kind of thing. It was like you just can't.
Did you
even like a bit of wine will just dry you out.
Did you ever smoke?
I do still smoke.
Yeah.
Like that One Last Drag song is about the addiction to cigarettes, but also just to anything else. I definitely have cut down a lot and definitely believe that it's something worth doing is quitting it. But at the same time, I'm kind of like still in that psychological being hooked on it, which the whole rock and roll lifestyle definitely like draws you in, this like allure, and then you find yourself later being like, oh, that whole promise was not what it sort of.
What age did you start smoking?
Promised to be. Well, it's a hard one. Like I smoked a lot of weed when I was a teenager, but it's probably, I would say that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Probably didn't start like smoking cigarettes until, I don't even remember. Must have been uni.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite late though, uni.
Like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
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 But like going to Sydney and being around bands and playing music. But I didn't smoke a lot.
Yeah.
Because again, the singing, it just wasn't sustainable. But over COVID and all that stuff, my live stuff like dramatically reduced. So, and there was like 5 years where I was kind of trying to find my way and not really playing much live. So that's probably when I ended up becoming I used to be a really bad smoker, like almost a pack a day kind of thing, which I just smoke when I drink, hence the quitting the drinking.
Well, that's the thing. I would eat crap food when I drink.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So that's
it's the cycle.
One of the main things why I quit drinking as well.
Yes.
And also the hangovers, I couldn't deal with them. Yes. All right, so we talk about physical health. We'll talk about mental health. How do you do stuff for your mental health? Like, do you actively go, I've got to do this for this?
I kind of think they're totally the same thing for me. Like, I'm sure they are not for some people with like conditions that I don't totally understand, but like the exercise and diet and sleep is the mental health care that I require.
I know it's really boring to tell that to people as well who are going through a bit of a hard time going, like go for a walk. Just start with the walk, get outside, touch grass, all that kind of stuff.
It changes things.
It sounds like patronising to them, but it really does help.
Well, they're starting to move it more into health spheres now. Like someone was telling me about a mental health hospital or whatever where they prescribe gardening and exercise and stuff before medication now.
Yep.
Which should have been for a while. Like it should have been always like that, really. But I'm not anti-medication, but I have seen some bad experiences with it, and it's like I don't think it should be the default straight away go-to.
Yeah.
Sort of like an antibiotic of the mind. Like you should be really pretty infected before they start giving you that stuff.
Do you have any red flags that you notice that you go, okay, I need to get on top of my mental health because this is happening?
Get pretty sad pretty quickly and pretty easily, and that's why the alcohol thing is like I just don't have the resilience anymore.
And do you
it just makes you depressed.
Do you lean into the sadness? Because I noticed I would do when I was getting a bit down. I'd lean into it. I listen to it.
You mean like indulge, or do you mean like?
Yeah, I'm feeling sad, so I'll put on sad music.
Oh.
I'll watch a movie that I know is.
That almost
sad.
sounds healthy, like almost like channeling it and letting it out.
Yeah, but it's also a bit too indulgent as well. I'm
yeah.
I'm going to be sad here. I'm going to listen to like Justin Townes Earl, and I'm going to listen to that kind of stuff. And yeah, I know I've said this in part. If I'm listening to Frightened Rabbit, that's my big one. Going,
You're
all
in
right,
a bad place.
I'm in a. Come on, Josh, snap out of this.
Yeah, right. No, I don't. This is going to sound terrible. I don't listen to music really.
Hey, I totally get that as a comedian because people are like, how many shows did you see in the festival?
None.
I saw 3. I saw
I don't watch shows and I don't
2 friends and one guy who was in my room before me that I wanted to see what it felt like to be in the room.
Yeah.
That's all. That's why I watched it. But yeah, even though it was a very good show. But so don't listen to music. So no red flags in terms of like going, all right.
I get red flags and then I get sad.
Yeah.
I start thinking about how much of a failure I feel like and how crap I am at life.
Yeah, but that's I mean,
it's all in your mind. Obviously,
Yes.
It's a perspective thing. But then I'm like, okay, I've got to get some better sleep and exercise. And it's because I haven't exercised for a couple of days, and then I know, and I go and fix it by doing that.
do you ever remind yourself? Do you look at your okay?
Sorry, I did just develop a mental health exercise the other day because you know how people write out their goals.
Yep.
That's great, especially if you like keep working towards them. And I've done it before, but sometimes I feel like just having goals, it's always about like comparing yourself to where you want to be, and sometimes it's quite bad for you to to always be noticing what you're not achieving or haven't yet achieved.
Yeah.
So the other day I was feeling really crap and I wrote out a list of my achievements in my life.
That's really
rather than
good.
my goals. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
actually I've done all right.
I always remind myself, if you told 15-year-old you what you're doing now,
Exactly.
would you take it? And 100%. Go,
Well, even me
absolutely.
6 years ago, 3 years ago, if I was like knew that I'd be there, I didn't have any solo music or any direction, and I was in a horrible debt after the Jezabels kind of ended up going a bit. What happened? We just had cancellations of tours for various health reasons, and it all kind of got pulled out the rug. And I was a bit lost for years, and I was just kind of in denial and spending money and just partying and traveling and just going crazy, living beyond my means. And then I was in a pretty dark place because I didn't have a career or any way of, getting out of these debts that I'd given myself. I wasn't in a terrible place in like the scheme of the world, but just in my life.
Yeah.
And then, so if I look at myself now, it's like I could be like, oh, I'm not selling arenas, but it's like, or I could be where I was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, it's good to sometimes not just look forward.
Yeah.
But you should look forward too, obviously.
Yeah, it's always those weird kind of, trying to be motivational people who are like, never look back, always look forward. It's like, no, sometimes you should look back and go, oh, yeah, that was good.
Gratitude is the key.
Yeah, and you need to reflect.
Exactly.
Like you give yourself time to reflect. I used to teach, and I used to teach kids at the State Library how to research properly, and how reflection was a really big part of that, because the reason you get assignments and essays is so you can learn from it. And then if you get 82%, all right, what was the 18%? So normally your lecturer or whoever will write down, this is what you need to improve on. And if you don't read it, you're not going to improve. Like you're just going to make the same mistakes. So reflection is really important.
It's hard, isn't it?
It's
to
so
look
hard.
at what you've done wrong and listen to criticism.
Yeah.
Not great at it.
You can always take it on, and you can always not. That's the same with therapists. Therapists they don't have all the answers.
No. Therapy is a really interesting one to me. I get that it's the place for a lot of probably with the medication. I think I have a little bit of a cynicism about the mental health field because maybe just bad experiences of watching other people and family members going through it maybe a long time ago before it improved and that kind of thing. But I think talking through things in therapy when stuff has happened is good, but I also feel like there's like an amount of talking at which point you should sort of stop talking about it, you know, like, and there's a bit of a dwelling type, like even with friends that you have where you always talk about the past or something and it's like, should we move on? Like
That's really hard sometimes.
Yeah. And so I guess therapy's a funny one to me because it's like, you know, I'm talking to my therapist and I'm like, maybe you should just live your life sometimes.
Yeah. Yes.
Obviously, when you've been a trauma and you need to work through it, go for it. It's like a time and a place, kind of like medication as well.
Yes. All right.
I suppose.
So that's health done. We've got family, career, and friends left. Which one do you tackle?
Oh, well, you said family first.
All right, we'll go family. Okay. Are you close to your family?
I've been healing my family relationships quite consistently in the last few years since meeting Johnny, my now husband, who is really close with his family.
Yeah.
And is a very warm, kind person who everyone likes.
Yes.
Including all my family.
Yeah.
And that they never I had a partner once for like 6 years that my dad didn't even look at once in the eye. It was just like does not acknowledge these things.
Did you know while you were dating that your family didn't like them?
It wasn't that they didn't like them. It's just like my dad just like it's like it just he never really had acknowledged any of my boyfriends, like in a dad way.
Yeah.
It was just like, I don't look at that. Like, it's just not part of my purview. But then Johnny came in and just was like, oh, hey, Andy, I hear you play guitar. You know, like addressed him as an individual and really won him over.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, like he started healing. And then there was this funny thing Johnny said. One of the first nights he met my dad, he was on ketamine, I think.
Johnny was or your dad?
Yeah, he was on ketamine and pretty pissed. And I hope his parents aren't listening, but I think they know he's done some drugs. And he came in after one of my shows and my dad, whose name is Andy, was in the room and Johnny was clearly a bit high and my friend Heather from Jezabels was like, oh, I think he's on he's on Ket or something to my dad. And he was like, what's that? She's like, it's a horse tranquilizer. And then Dad said, Johnny, are you a horse? And Johnny just replied, you know what, Andy? And just put his arm around my dad and was like, you need to stop being such a fucking cunt to your daughter.
Oh, wow.
Just straight out. Like first night he'd met him. And he was like, oh, okay. And he like respected it.
Yeah.
And it was my dad was going through some health issues at the time. And he maybe had a sense of his mortality. And I think he liked it because he was like, this guy's like going to back her.
Yeah.
You know? And so he called the next day and he was like, I like that Johnny chap.
Oh, that's good.
And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And yeah, so that began a bit of a conscious, like, even because I find it very difficult to talk to my dad on the phone because he sometimes talks for a long time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But he's also quite really interesting, but it's like if you're busy, you're kind of like, oh. And I can just put him onto Johnny and be like, right, you talk to him for a while.
Yeah.
You know?
So siblings, do you have any siblings?
I do. I have one full brother.
Yep.
And one half sister, quite a bit younger than me.
Yep.
I was 9 or something when my brother was born.
Yep.
And then my parents split up, so I didn't really grow up with them.
Yep.
And then 14 when my half sister was born. So it's kind of cool because we didn't ever like squabble or fight or anything. It's kind of like pretty different generations.
Yeah. So did you have a role in your family? Like,
I don't know what it is.
I interview a lot of comedians, and every comedian is like peacemaker. That's what their role was. They were like, oh, I just wanted everyone to be happy and getting on.
That makes sense. This is why they're funny.
Yeah. Or can't deal with anything serious is the other switch. But as the older sibling, so I guess if there's 9 years removed.
I don't know. You'd probably have to ask my siblings what that role is. Because I'm a bit of a runner in terms of like family stuff. I kind of did, hence the recently trying to heal things. Yep. I kind of wanted to get out of Byron pretty badly, and like, I don't know, they all stayed and thought it was fine and all that kind of thing. And I was like, get me out of here, small town kind of vibe. So I don't know, maybe I'm the one that got away.
So was it Sydney you moved to?
Yes, yeah.
And how old were you? Were 18, 19? Or?
Yeah. Would have been 17 the
17.
first time. Yeah. I finished school at 17, maybe 18.
17 going on to uni?
Yeah, there was a bit of back and forth thing, you know,
Yep.
coming back with my tail between my legs and then going back.
Yep.
But I moved out of home when I was 15, so definitely like just was well and truly kind of doing my own thing. There was a long time I didn't talk to my family for like my dad and mum
Yeah.
for quite a while. Basically when I was learning about radical feminism and all the identity politics that was an arts degree
Yeah.
in the that makes you look very critically at your father. I kind of got over that. I think that was probably not very good for our relationship, and I have my criticisms of all that stuff as well. But yeah, so I didn't talk to them for ages. I think I was probably the distant, weird first sibling that was like an idea to them rather than like a reality. But we've gotten closer over the last few years.
So how old were your parents when they had you?
My mum was 30.
So okay, so not young people in terms of going. Oh, because I just think with the age gap, maybe I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh yeah, then they were even older when they had the other ones.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yep.
Insane.
All right. So your parents aren't divorced, but they talk.
Yeah, they're kind of like weird siblings now.
Yeah, my parents are also divorced, but divorced later, so they're still going through it. Yeah, it's kind of bizarre now.
I think that I'm quite traditional, and I would, you know, I value the try and stay together for kids if you can, if it's not unhealthy for them. But I think that my parents divorcing was a good thing. I mean, they're never married. Separating was a good thing because it was just like miserable.
Yep. So Christmases, I always talk about Christmases.
Interesting family one, isn't it?
Yeah. Really, it really brings out the worst of some family members. Yeah. So was it a divide? You have to go one, the other?
We don't really do it.
Yep.
My family are heathens. I mean, my dad's side, they're like all sort of Catholic upbringing, so they sort of hate the church but maintain the guilt.
Yeah.
So all the worst things of it, like they've got no faith or hope, but just guilt.
Were you christened as a child, like baptised?
No, I think we lied about me having been baptised so I could go to a Catholic school.
So I was baptised even though my parents never went to church, only did it because it was the tradition to do, because they were and their parents were like, hey, we've got to do this. And so they didn't want to, but it was another event.
Yeah, if they don't believe in it, there's no real harm doing it, I guess.
Yeah.
But for those who do believe in it, there's harm not doing it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess you're protected in case they're right.
In case, yeah. I've been baptised twice. I was taught.
Oh,
yeah. I talked about it in my show.
That's really funny.
I went on a Christian summer camp and got tricked into being baptised.
Again.
I only went on the camp because my friends were going and I didn't want to miss out. And there were trampolines built into the ground. And I was like, oh, I want to go to that.
I had a time I wanted to get baptised.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm actually weirdly traditional. I think I'm okay. We worked out what I am, me and the drummer in my band. I'm a squircle.
A squircle?
I'm a square with soft edges.
Okay.
Yeah. So because I came from a really not square background.
Yep.
Very hippie, unconventional, chaos, no discipline. I always wanted to go to the Catholic school and be baptized and just like have discipline. And
so is this,
my parents just would not give it to me.
Is
and
this
so I'm
your version of being contrarian to your family? Yeah.
I'm like pretty conservative in comparison to.
It is funny that your parents must. So, like you said, you're a rock singer. You went off and studied feminism, and then.
Well, no, I didn't study feminism. That was just they inserted that into every degree in a certain period of time. I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're still doing it. But no, I started studying law and then I studied arts.
Okay.
But yeah, they'd already captured the universities with feminism by that time, so it was all in there.
All right. So so now you're married. Meeting Johnny's family, was that an eye-opening experience, seeing that he's quite close with them?
Yes.
Have you learned anything from...
It freaked me out at first. They knew all my business and stuff. I was like, why do your parents know about things in my life?
Yeah.
He was like, I talked to them and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But,
it's really funny. You do know a lot. You find out so much about your partner when you meet their family and you say, oh, that's you get that from that and that from that. And even though my wife is her own person, I see little traits of... She would hate me saying this, but her mum...
More than the sum of her parts, but still see the sum of her parts.
Like my wife, anxious person, but can spiral, and her mum really does that. Like can't throw a piece of paper away without going, oh, but what? Maybe you have it. And I'm like we don't need anything. So Beck's sister has really rebelled against that. Her house, she's just moved house actually, and it's like, looks like there's a couch and like some books and that's it. And she goes, perfect. I don't want anything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
Whereas I've got 2 kids as well.
Anti-hoarding.
Yeah, and my house is just falling apart with just shit that I want to throw out. But they're like, no, what happens if we need it later? I'm like, we'll buy another one. I don't care. But yeah, she definitely gets that from her mum who
Yes.
yeah. So is there anything when you met Johnny's family that you learn about Johnny?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a bit of a running joke in Johnny's family that like his mum is the loveliest person you'll ever meet, and his father is hard, really hard, and like, you know, I guess like he pushed them very hard. So I think Johnny gets he was like the top swimmer in his year when he was a kid, and he got like a scholarship into like the top school in the country and all that stuff because of his swimming, and this is all because his dad pushed him incredibly hard to the point of like some people will almost criticize it and be like, oh, it was too hard, you know, and then but Johnny's, well, was it? Because I kind of won.
Yeah.
And he's taken that on that work ethic on that he learned, like getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning every day and sacrificing certain things, and he's taken a lot of elements of that on in his music.
Yeah.
Like he is one of the musicians that I met that like has a serious work ethic.
Yeah. I really get annoyed when comics talk about, oh, we're all like, we get up at midday and we just bum around. I'm like, no, we don't. A lot of us.
Not the ones that are doing stuff.
A lot of us work really, really hard and don't really give ourselves breaks. It's almost like we work like
too hard,
16-hour days because we're thinking about it the whole time and we don't log off. And yeah, it's interesting when you have, because friends with musicians who are good and making it, and like they work so hard. Like you can't become a good guitarist without the work.
No, you can't.
Like all those, because I learned playing guitar by listening to Evan Dando songs. I wish I listened to like metal songs because I'd be a much better guitar player.
That's so funny you say that. I'm going to do a residency around the corner in August at Small Time, which is where Johnny and I have this studio that we're helping run, which is like writing rooms, and there's a recording studio in Brunswick. It's awesome. It's above a bar, and so I was like, oh, we should set up like a residency where I can just like work out some stripped back stuff and get my set together. So I'm doing that in August, and I decided to make it like I haven't come up with a name yet, but like an inspirations session where I sing covers, a mix of covers of the songs that influenced or inspired my songwriting.
Yep.
And then intersperse it with some of my songs, because it's like it's kind of got to be long, so I don't want to just play my own songs. And I started learning a Parkway Drive cover yesterday because they were the band that was like my first show when I was growing up. That was like huge when we were growing up in Byron. That was just kind of starting.
Yep.
So I was learning it, and I was like, there's no way I can play this riff. I'm just going to have to turn it into an acoustic chill song.
All my friends who were musicians growing up were learning Metallica, and I'm learning like It's a Shame About Ray. It's just 4 chords. I wish I was like, now.
Depends on what you want to be. If you want to be a guitarist, yes, but if you want to be a songwriter, just hire another guitarist, you know, and 4 chords and the truth is all you need. So it depends on the genre.
Yep. All right, family, done. Wrapped up there. Cool. Now,
but I should say Johnny gets his niceness from his mum. He has time for everyone, and he looks like he might be someone who can be quite easily influenced by everyone, but he has that like hardness of his dad where he doesn't actually get the pushed over as easily as you might think.
All right, friends, career, that's what's left.
I sadly reckon that I sacrificed a lot on the friends side for the career.
All right, so which one are you going to talk about first?
To be honest with you, I'm mainly friends with people I work with.
Okay, well, let's talk about friends then.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so growing up, social?
I was in high school. I was really social, actually. I used to like walk around to every single group and say hello at recess and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I hung out with a lot of guys. I was a little bit of what are they called? Tomboy.
Tomboy.
I was going to say toy boy. That's not the correct term.
Were you into music at high school?
Yeah, but I was way too scared.
So did people know you could sing?
Yeah, I had a few demos. And I was like, it was in the years of MySpace, and remember like how people used to put like their I don't know if your friends did this, but you would put the first line of the song you were listening to as your like bio.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had like this EP or like 3 songs. That's not
Yeah.
really an EP, like really shitty demos that I gave like this boy I had a crush on or something, and he put it up as his thing, and I was like, oh my God.
It's so funny thinking back to 'cause on Facebook it'll come up with your memories, and if it goes, because I've been on Facebook for almost 20 years. I don't know when I first got on, like 2007, maybe, I don't know. No, it would have been later than that. Anyway, very early. And look at what I was posting, just song lyrics.
Right,
like
MySpace. You
Yeah,
were thinking
because I was
like
just going to
MySpace.
MySpace, and there was one the other day that came out, was like a chicken with its head cut off. I'm just posting Magnetic Fields quotes going, who the fuck is this for? Like, it was such a weird
you didn't
thing.
understand the platform.
Didn't know
you?
what I was to be doing with it. But yeah, so because normally, like, if you can sing and you're in high school, there's people want you either can be in the drama department and do the musicals, or that. Did you do musicals?
I did a few musicals. Like in the early days, I did some stuff like early high school, but then I did discover weed, and it kind of made me like a nervous wreck.
But that's also another group of people that you can be friends with.
Yeah, I was friends with the stoners.
Yeah, because that takes a lot, especially in high school, takes a lot of, all right, we've got to, get it, and then find a place we can go where we're not going to be not going to be caught.
I spent a lot of time in vans.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually arrested in a van for possession of cannabis.
How old?
Which technically wasn't mine, but the guy who owned the van, I think I'd brought it in because we were fleeing a party that the cops were breaking up. I was in my pajamas actually. And I grabbed it to like save the guy from getting in trouble, because they would find it in his house.
Yeah.
And we were all fleeing, and then I put it under the subwoofer in the van because there was one, and hid it there because the cops came in, and then they searched the van. It was all very stupid.
Yeah.
Probably should have just left it where it was, but hey. And so the guy who was driving the van was already in court for something else, so I had to take it. And I was underage. I knew because I was doing legal studies.
Yeah.
Because all of my cousins had been arrested and, according to my family, wrongly persecuted by the police. But I'm not quite sure about that now that I see their continuing behaviour.
It's like everyone who talks about if they're like descended from convicts, they were just stealing a loaf of bread.
Yeah,
they weren't all stealing loaves of bread, guys. Yeah.
Not all of it was loaves of bread. But yeah, so also maybe at first they were a bit unfair, and then it cycles. But whatever, you got to take responsibility at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was going to be the lawyer that got everyone out of prison. This was my aim at first, and then I got arrested. I don't think I have a criminal record because it was a caution.
Yeah.
But my dad came in and was like, as they woke him up, and it was like 2 a.m. or something, and he had to drive, so it was 3 a.m. by the time he got there, and they were like, what's your daughter doing out at 3 a.m? And it was like, oh, you actually rang me at 1 and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he was arguing with them. And he was like, do you mind if I see the weed? He just wanted to know if I'd stolen it from him, mainly. And they were like, showed him, and it was basically empty. And he was like, oh, for fuck's sake, that wouldn't stone a monkey. What have you, she's in her pajamas. What are you doing? And they took me on a police chase. They chased some drunk driver while I was in the back. Now that I think about it, they didn't behave appropriately.
Or they were protecting you from being out of that van. Maybe they're like, hey, let's get her out of the van.
No, well, I would say that, except when I told them my name, which is McGlone.
Yeah.
It's not Hayley Mary.
I know.
Running
I did
away
the research.
from that, did you?
Yeah.
I said, they were like, what's your name? And I was like, Hayley McGlone. And they were like, oh, so you're Rory's sister. And I was like, no, he's my cousin. He was like, oh, so you're Tara's sister. Like, my family had like a name around town. They'd all been arrested. And it was just like not a good vibe.
All right. So you moved to Sydney. Did you know anyone in Sydney?
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who was sort of like a surrogate sister that moved in with me and my mum, called Emika, who was working as a model in like the fashiony Bondi hip world. So I moved in with her. Yeah. And a bunch of her friends that I'd gone to high school with, the older girls, were all down here. So that was cool. But I ended up and Heather was studying at the con, Heather from the Jezabels. Yeah. So I visited her and then I literally decided to go to Sydney because I thought Sydney Uni looked like Hogwarts. Yeah. Like, that was literally why I went to Sydney. Yeah. That was it. And then Heather and I started playing because we'd been playing in high school. Yeah. And so, Yeah, and then I knew Sam from the Jezabels from school as well, but I'd gone to his school for like a term. Didn't know him well, and I met him at uni.
Yeah.
And so we started the band there.
And that's so at that stage, it's 3-piece? Well, when
it was a 3-piece. We were looking for a drummer, and Sam found Nick working at the cafe at Sydney Uni because they struck up a conversation about some music he was playing, and he was a metal drummer. So we had to kind of reel him in a bit.
But at least he knows what he's doing. So
He
grew up learning metal. So
exactly.
So when you're in a fall like that, then I'm guessing you're all friends, fast friends.
Yeah, interesting one with the Jezebels. Like, I think we're more friends now than we were then in some ways. Like, Heather and I were friends, but again, this is more a reflection on me than anything else. It's like I was saying, I'm often just friends with people I work with.
Yeah.
And I'm quite like work orientated. Like, I very rarely want to socialize.
Yeah.
Like, I call people up because I want to do something with them work related. And so Heather was like in that hardcore scene, it was very blokey. And I was like, I don't want to. Basically, people were like, who are you here to suck off, basically, and like getting kicked in the head and stuff. I was like, I kind of want to start a band rather than like be someone's groupie.
Yeah.
And so I knew Heather played music, and that's why reached out to her, and then we were friends. But it was kind of like always on a music relationship.
Yeah. So you say you're closer now. So how many years ago did the band break up?
It didn't break up. It just went into hiatus.
Yep.
We actually toured the other couple of years ago. Every now and then we do something, but we were supposed to do this world tour of our third album. So that was 2016 or something.
Yep.
It was approximately around the time David Bowie died.
Yep.
It was a shit week.
Yeah.
So yeah, Heather had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer for a while, but she'd been kind of keeping at bay, doing operations, working between tours on that stuff. It was also kind of private then.
Yeah.
But then she just couldn't balance it anymore. It came back, and we had to cancel this whole world tour. So we sort of had to explain it and make the news public, which weirdly enough it had some quite positive ramifications. Obviously, she didn't really want to tell people about having ovarian cancer at age 26 or something. It's like you don't really want to share that. But because we cancelled this whole tour, she sort of felt like she had to explain it. And I had a friend whose mum worked in like ovarian health and that kind of thing. And she said that because this type of cancer at that time was really rare, and particularly in Heather's age, and because the case got so much publicity, a lot of people started coming in earlier with sort of ovarian pains, and there was a massive spike in that kind of cancer being diagnosed. But it's not because suddenly more people were getting it. It's because normally it would go somewhere else and get diagnosed as liver cancer later.
Yep.
But like we were getting it earlier because people were going, oh shit,
Yeah.
So there was like a weird positive of her having to expose her vulnerability there, but it was kind of a nice little silver lining.
And so you'd been friends for what, a decade up until then, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd known Heather since primary school.
Yeah.
So
you go from friends
Longer.
to colleagues and still friends, and then when she gets the diagnosis, what's that for your friendship? Does it make you closer, or is it?
It's an interesting one. I'm probably not the most sensitive of human beings, and like it felt like probably working together kind of does make friendships more stressed and stretched. And like you know, when you're touring a lot together, they're kind of like the last people you want to be around when you're not touring.
Yeah.
So we were more distant, and then I think because everyone knew about Heather having cancer, I kind of wanted to sort of ignore it.
Yeah.
Because I think she didn't want to be the girl with cancer all the time.
Yeah.
So it was like I didn't really go on about it or be like, hey, I'm there for you. I kind of just went on as life is normal, because Heather's quite a straight down the line, no bullshit.
Yeah.
She doesn't like too much sympathy or people talking about her type stuff. So I wouldn't say it brought us closer, even though I probably should have let it. But we're kind of like siblings.
Yep.
The band.
Well, there's that bond there that you've known each other so long, and you've gone through so much stuff together that. Is it, how often do you talk to her now?
Not very much.
But is it when you get back together straight into old times?
Yeah, like we all know each other just like the back of each other's hands, and like there's no offense taken about different opinions or anything like that. It's kind of like pretty, yeah. Not taken for granted, that's the wrong word, but it's like you just know each other and you just feel very comfortable even if you have your differences.
So do you make time for friends now?
Not enough, no.
Well, okay, I'll ask you this. What do you look for?
I'm really bad with friendship.
What do you look for in a friendship?
It's my flaw, my major flaw. I don't.
You don't look for anything?
I don't look for friendship. I'm a pretty terrible friend. I have a few good friends.
Yeah.
And they all have that thing of like, generally I know them from school.
Yeah.
I have a couple of newer friends that I've worked with, but I like to keep things professional as well. I don't like to be too close to people.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a loner.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a question I ask everyone. Okay. Would you happily drive someone to the airport or would you prefer to ask for a lift to the airport? Do you drive?
That's fascinating.
Do you drive?
Yes, I drive. I drive people to the airport all the time, but that's because I'm paying for their Uber because they're my employees technically. So I know if I'm thinking about like a friend.
Yeah.
I'm not really the kind of person people ask favours of.
Okay. But would you ask a favour of someone?
Like my mum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or my husband.
Yeah.
I don't – sometimes people offer to do things, but I don't ask people. No, I don't really ask people to drive me to the airport either.
I feel the same way. I don't think I'm the type of person that people ask favours of.
Interesting.
I don't know what that says.
How do you feel about that?
Well, it's a weird thing. I think they think I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Because I can also be a bit standoffish as well. I mean, I'm friendly, but also a little bit like
it's also kind of inappropriate. Like it's an absolute ball ache to drive someone to the airport.
So I don't mind the drive because I've got kids, so I'm happy to drive.
But it's like almost like an hour of your time, whereas to get there one way, it's like a half hour of their time.
The drive back on my own, that's my favourite part of it.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should be like, hey guys, just want you to know I'm out there for the drive.
I've been saying it on this podcast enough. All right. Okay. Our last one. Okay. So we've left career till last. Let's talk about your career.
Wow.
Is that what you left it last on purpose? Don't want to talk about it?
Well, you put it in that order, health, and I think that's the right order.
You reckon? Okay.
I used to not. I've thought about this. I've got a new song coming out called The Ballad of Ruby Wednesday, and it's a little bit about how I think women of a lot of generations actually, but mine included, have been encouraged to pursue career over everything else.
Yes.
And I think that is lacking in the amount of happiness it can lead to ultimately. And my generation now getting to the age where they were sort of told to run to the hills from everything traditional, and that, you know, I had a teacher that would tell you like, oh, if you're intelligent, men won't understand you and you'll never find a good partner, and, you know, children are oppressive, and like that's kind of was like drummed into us. And so we've become quite obsessed with like our own unique boundary pushing individual identities and careers, and that's great for a bit. And then you get to like your 30s and you're like, this is starting to feel empty. Like even success doesn't feel satisfying. Let alone whether you can even achieve success or not.
I know. Look, I speak to people who are so successful in my eyes, and I realize they've still got the same insecurities that I have at my point in my career in terms of like they're still worried about ticket sales, reviews, all that kind of stuff, even though they've got full houses absolutely loving them. But they're like, oh yeah, but so many of them were giveaways and that kind of stuff, and I can't get blah, blah, blah to come review the show and all that kind of stuff. I'm like,
what? Always one more rung on the ladder.
Yeah, what is enough? What is enough? So we'll go. So for those who don't know, Jezabels, 3 albums.
3 albums, 3 EPs.
3 EPs.
Wait,
so
am I wrong?
2006 to 2017 was when you're only on hiatus. They're still not come back.
We started our hiatus.
And then you went, when were you first, 2020? Is that when you released your first?
Yeah, right during COVID.
Yep. and was it a COVID decision? You're like, right, I've got to do something?
It was just before COVID I released my first EP, and I was meant to go overseas and do various things, and then COVID kind of screwed me.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of anger about some of the things that musicians don't express. Like I think the second lockdowns were pretty bad in Victoria.
Yeah.
Controversial. but I'm glad there's an inquest into it. Let's put it that way. I heard there's a class action about it.
I have my children. My youngest one was in prep when the lockdowns all happened, and we're still playing catch up with his education.
Oh yeah, it's screwed up so many kids. Imagine being like the year 12 of that year.
That's what they say. They say the preps in the year 12s had it the hardest.
Yeah, the development of your mind, like it's meant to be moving to the city to go to uni or whatever. I don't. It's like obviously there was a need. I fully understand the first one, and maybe some of the remaining ones. I don't remember how many there were. There was like 6 in Victoria, but I do think maybe there's a question about the legality of some of it and whether it was effective and necessary for the economic problems that later happened and the mental health problems. I mean, I knew 6 musicians that had, like, not personal friends, but in like orchestra world through a friend of mine who had committed suicide.
Yeah.
Literally as a direct result of the lockdowns and not being able to work anymore. It's like that's got to factor in to how we judge all that.
Yeah. It happened at a point where I was so ready for a break. It was that I'd been working so hard for 15 years at comedy. And it was just before the comedy festival started, and I was like, no, we're shutting everything down.
Yeah.
And even though I had friends like going, I'm out so much money here, it was, for me, it was like, I'm looking. And at the time, it was like, I thought it was going to be, we'll all be inside for a month and then we'll come out. And it was like, great. And I was like, yeah, I'll learn to play piano. I'll do all that. I did nothing.
I liked bits of it for sure.
I still kind of go, it'd be nice just to have a 2-week lockdown where we can't go to work for 2 weeks. We all just have to stay inside, but that's not going to happen. So,
sorry, I digressed there.
No, it's all right.
We were talking about career.
Career. Okay.
Well, that kind of screwed me a bit. I'm going to be honest. But I mean, don't want to be like that kind of screwed me, because it didn't. Like it also gave me a lot of opportunity to get better at certain things. Like I actually had to learn guitar because, like I'm playing rock music and it's like hiring a 6-piece band was just not sustainable during COVID. So I was like, okay, one of you has to go and I need to learn guitar.
Yeah.
So I used that. And I think COVID was what you make of it. Yeah. I just think as a general social thing, it was maybe badly managed in Victoria. But so I was supposed to go on tour and I didn't, basically, and I just kind of kept releasing EPs, and then now I'm kind of playing catch up into I still haven't ever done a national tour. Yeah. So hopefully on this next batch of music I will get that happening.
So was it always the dream to be a singer?
Actually, it was.
Yep.
My mum has a business card that I made when I was like 6. That was like a stick figure picture of a girl.
Yep.
And it said like Hayley singer and my home phone number. And I only made one and I gave it to my mum. So I've never been great at marketing.
So who was the influences? Who was it like that? I want to be like them.
I liked all those divas, like the 80s stuff, like, Bonnie Tyler and Cyndi Lauper and Belinda Carlisle. I loved ABBA. Like pop music. Yep. Like sweet, sweet pop music. I loved Freddie Mercury, David Bowie, Kate Bush, like pretty over the top singers.
Yep.
And then, like quite theatrical stuff. But also my dad listened to a lot of rock. So I really loved like Roy Orbison and that kind of stuff. Yep. But yeah, those were all old stuff, and it's still old stuff. I've always been kind of an old style person. Like people are always like, oh, what new music are you listening to? I'm like, none.
Yep. Well, you say you don't listen to music, so that's fine. So,
yeah.
So, okay, so...
I'm not sure I want to be a singer for much longer, though. I'm not going to lie. I'm looking for something else, but I just can't do anything else.
So, well, that's the thing. So, because you give up so much of your life to this, and I'm in the same point. I always have things like, what if comedy doesn't work out, what do I do? I've got like my
trapped in
my CV is up to 21 and then again at 42. What I mean, I write for TV.
Yes.
But look, just between you and me, I'm not sure if TV is going to be around much longer.
No, yeah, you're right. And I mean, there is the AI.
I know.
If you guys keep striking, they will just replace you with AI.
We're not. It's so funny in America they're striking so they don't get paid like we do in Australia. Which is that you get paid a wage, get stuff on the back end. Anyway,
I just think the strikes are counterproductive because they use that time to replace you with machines.
Yes, although the strike before did a lot of good stuff came out of it because people had time to write. They were meant to be on strike, but they actually had time to write. All right, so that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask about, okay, so touring, what's something that you want people to know about being a touring musician that you think they don't know?
Oh. Okay, I think people have a little bit of a strange notion of how the whole business runs. Like people will be like, come to France. And I'm like, yeah, like, okay. But like, is it just going to be you there?
Yeah.
Or like, are there going to be 600 people there? Or like, they're like, why can't you do it? I'm like, okay, I'm just going to tell you because you keep pestering me.
Yeah.
It would cost this amount for me to come to France. And then I'm not sure that it would be justified for me to play in front of you and your 3 friends, or I don't know I have no way of knowing whether the market is there currently. I don't think it is, but like, you know, it's a risk. It's a financial risk that I would have to take. It would cost this amount of money. And they're like, oh, I thought the venue paid you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? No, the venue's struggling just as much as musicians. It's you who pays for it.
Yeah.
So I can't just come to your house and play for you for your $25 ticket or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think people think that like you don't really want to talk about the business side of things because it ruins the mystique. But because I'm self-managed, I do think about it a bit, and I'm like, people just think that there's so much more money in it than there is.
Yeah.
And that like someone's paying for something other than the artist, and ultimately the artist is always paying. And obviously they're making the money if there's money, but all of the costs come out first.
Yeah.
So if you look at like a big festival and they're playing like this amazing, and you're thinking, oh, there's 20,000 people here, that's crazy. But then you take away all of the staging, all of the lighting, all of the session players, all of the crew, all of the hotels, all of the trucks that get the stuff there, and it's really, ever since again COVID and the economic stuff, it's gotten so much more expensive to tour. So there's so many cancellations and that kind of thing. So I think people are millionaires because they've got to go on a big show, but like often people are like losing money on these tours.
So funny with festivals. So Adelaide Fringe one year, apparently I've just heard this, so I'm not sure if it's 100% true, but I'll say it anyway. So apparently the all the techs on the shows in the garden found out that the bar staff were getting paid more an hour than they were. Right. And so the next year they went, oh, I'm not going to apply. I'm just going to apply for bar staff.
Right, so they had no techs.
Well, they had techs, but they weren't as good. And so if stuff wasn't working, they'd have to go get someone from the bar. Can you come and help this because you know what you're doing? And it's that thing of like, that's what and I kind of remind myself, oh yeah, this is a way for them to sell alcohol. I'm in the alcohol business, though I don't want to be. I'm in the alcohol business.
Always been that.
Like pubs put on bands to get people in to drink more, and then they realised, oh, it's cheaper to just get pokies in there, so we'll just put pokies there. We don't have to pay the pokies.
They're worried about that with with music venues in general because like younger kids are drinking less. Yeah, and so just the live tickets is not going to keep the venues open. So you will see we're definitely going through a great resetting of. I do wonder if the rock and roll revolution is over. Because it's not.
It is cyclical though. I remember in 98, 99 going, I don't know if I'm into rock music these days.
I don't really mean rock the genre, but it is tied to it.
Yeah.
That kind of like revolutionary spirit. And I'm not some radical Marxist that thinks we need to cut off the heads of the powers that be or anything. I just mean that kind of the promise of boundary pushing. Like there was also something that happened with the homogenizing of the entire entertainment industry, and all of their opinions are exactly the same. Yeah. And they're all pretty corporate, and they all say the exact same line about what they believe politically and so it's like the revolution is not coming from the music industry anymore. Like let's just be honest. It's entertainment, it's content. You might get some kind of actual connection through the music, but as far as like, you know, the Beatles shutting down segregation and having any I think that whole kind of musical activism is almost an aesthetic now. And it's not meaningful. Yeah. So I maybe am a cynic, but I just don't see the promise that it used to have. And I honestly think podcasting and comedy is where the punk is now.
Yeah, I can't. Although
You're probably cynical about that industry.
yeah, I think I'm very cynical about the comedy industry anyway.
Did you know that apparently most musicians want to be comedians and most comedians want to be musicians?
Absolutely, yes. There's so many, like, that's why I invite musicians on this, because they're good banter.
I observe comedians are often way more serious than I expect them to be in real life. And I'm like, why aren't you always being funny? And they're like, no, I want to talk about serious music and shit. And I'm like, no, let's do jokes.
When I used to host Spicks and Specs, I'd always have to say to comedians, okay, you don't worry about the quiz. You're here to be be funny, okay?
Yeah,
you'd have
trust me.
comics go on there and all they'd want to do is show off how much music knowledge
And
they
be
have.
smart.
And it's like, we don't care about that. That's because when I was a guest on it, I was like, I'm only going for laughs. I don't care. If I know the answer, I'm just going to go for the laugh anyway, and then we can do the right answer afterwards.
Yes.
And it fared me well. They gave me the top job for a bit, and then they took it away from me.
Everything
Anyway,
comes to an end.
yeah. All right, so this is the last question. And we're back.
We are back.
12 days.
Yeah.
What's happened?
Is there a movie about that? 12 days and 12 nights or something?
No, it's 40 days and 40 nights.
When someone goes out without sex?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh Hartnett, I think it is.
This is so different to that.
Yeah.
It's only 12 days.
I think the last scene is him just fantasizing about boobs, if I recall my 19-year-old self watching it and going, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
So what happened for the listener is we and viewer, we were recording and then all of a sudden the computer crashed, but it saved somehow. So it's been almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How's things?
Good. I was actually saying before I was quite grateful for the technological problem because I felt I was in a bit of a grumpy mood that day. I was coming across more cynical than I would like.
Well, I didn't pick up on it.
That's good.
But it was the longest conversation we've ever had. So maybe, yeah. I don't know,
that's your baseline for me is this. Yeah. And sometimes I'm actually more optimistic.
Okay, great. So we got through everything. The only thing I had left was to say, all right, I'm a magic genie right now, and I can grant you any wish for your career. What would you wish for?
That's interesting that you picked career.
Well, it's only career.
It's only career.
I only asked this question about career.
About career.
Yeah.
That's interesting about you.
About me? What do you reckon it says about me?
Well, no, I don't know. But we just went through all these important areas and then that's the question.
Yeah.
But, that's really quite difficult because if you ask for something kind of magical, then you get it and you don't actually feel you've earned it.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be like, I want millions of dollars in success or whatever. I wish for wherever the source is that my persistence comes from to continue to produce that fuel that keeps me going because I definitely do come close to quitting like once a week.
That's a very good answer because a lot of times when I speak to comedians, they're like, I just wish I could just go to a town and enough people in that town come out and see me. And that's all I want.
One particular town or
no,
like several
just
towns?
if I put a show on, it sells out. People come.
Look, I think so I've had a strange arc because I've had some success at quite a young age.
Yep.
And then that was sort of pulled out from under me due to sickness and various things that weren't really in my control. And so I've had like the highs of that, but I was quite unhappy at the peak of my success. Like I was probably the most unhappy I've ever been when I was the most successful. Yeah. So I don't think those markers, those external markers like playing to a room full of this many people or this many sales or all that stuff, that's great to have as goals, but they don't make people feel successful. Like the more successful the person is that I meet, the stranger internal problems they seem to have. So I think I would probably wish for like an internal marker, like I want the motivation to keep going because it's really just about like having purpose in your life that feels like you're contributing to the world, and hopefully that has material consequences anyway because you're doing something good by yourself and by other people.
So you mentioned like you feel like you want to quit most weeks. What gets you out of that though?
Most days.
What gets you out of that thing?
Well, looking at the options. So it's like I'm not sure if it's the same with comedians or not, but like most musicians I know who I consider legitimate musicians whether they're successful or not, like it's a compulsion.
Yep.
And like they sort of have to do it. Like they just have always had to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's must be growing. I don't know. Maybe that category is a small amount of people, and there's just heaps of people who want to be musicians now. I don't know, because it seems easier and more accessible. I don't know, but so I guess it's like I'm not good at anything else. There's a couple of skills I've developed, business type skills. Like I could run a different type of business, or I could do some books, or I could do a few things. Like I'm interested in other stuff, but like I've been doing this since I was 17 or 18, and it's like I don't know what I would do. It still always seems the most viable option.
Yeah.
And then you push through like that. When I moved out of home when I was 15, I moved in with one of my friends and her mum was this really lovely lady, and she had this thing on her fridge that was like a poem about persistence.
Yep.
Do you know this poem?
No.
It's like a old cliche poem, like nothing will take the place of persistence, like talent, like the world's full of talented people that do nothing with it, all that stuff. So basically, I guess that memory of that idea does keep me going, because it's like this is hard right now, but
it's funny. So my kids are very much into basketball. I also like basketball, but there's a kids movie called Thunderstruck, and there's this NBA player in it called Kevin Durant, and in the movie he says, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that's a similar thing with persistence.
It's exactly the same thing. I was listening to a podcast. You know what gets me through, actually? It's really lame, but like not music stuff, like business stuff.
Yeah.
Like listening to podcasts, like mainstream businessy corporate stuff of like people who talk really loud and Americans who are really optimistic and shit.
Yeah.
Like it's like that kind of stuff gets me through of like, you just got to get up and you just – it's really embarrassing.
I sometimes feel that because I like this guy called Adam Grant, who's an occupational therapist.
Right.
And he had a podcast called Work Life, and it's basic stuff. It's like if you can do something within a minute, do it.
Yes.
And it's that kind of and you're like going, this isn't wise or profound, but it does give me the kick in the ass I need, that I go, of course, yeah.
Yeah, they're like little life hacks and stuff like that, yes.
All right, great. Okay, so that is the end of the 4 burner talk, but now we get to the point where you tell me which ones you're keeping on of your burners and which ones you are prepared to turn off. So it's career, family, friends, health.
What am I prepared to turn off?
Are you going to turn – because the theory suggests if you keep them all on, you burn out. So if you turn 1 off, you can be successful on those other 3. You turn 2 off, you're super successful on those other 2. Where does
this theory – I mean, I know of this theory subconsciously, unconsciously, and most people say it, you know, and agree with it, that you can't have it all. It's like the modern woman can't have it all. But where does it come from? Like it's
some American kind of like pop psychologist kind of thing. I should look it up, seeing I've based a whole comedy show and podcast on it. I should look up who actually came up with it.
Maybe. But I mean, maybe it's also just like folklore or common knowledge or something as well, and this person's just articulated it. I know that you can't have it all, but I feel like we live despite that and to challenge it, because people are always trying for more. Like I don't know if we can give up on it that easily. Like, because what would you sacrifice if you say you sacrifice health? Well, then it's all gone. So no.
Okay, so health. You're saying health has to stay.
Health kind of has to stay. I mean, most people, funnily enough, do sacrifice their health more than everything, like unconsciously or whatever, and then it slowly, gradually breaks down. I don't know, this is really hard. What are the other ones again? Family,
career, friends.
So in many ways, this is poignant again to the song that I'm bringing out very shortly called The Ballad of Ruby Wednesday, where I kind of in my mind debate, like not debate, but the motherhood thing and family thing, particularly to women, particularly of a certain generation, the post-feminist kind of generations, is a really big battle, because it's generally positioned as like career versus family and how they're going to conflict in ways that they don't seem to conflict for men. They do a bit, but not quite as much, just due to the physicality of nature. But I am in that kind of moment, getting towards my late 30s where I'm supposed to, turn it on if I'm going to have a kid and that kind of thing. And I do feel somewhat frustrated with the pet. This was meant to be a short answer.
That's all good.
With the strains of feminist thought that made us think that we needed to deny family and that family was oppressive and all we needed was a career. And on the other side of the coin of that, I do think that having a career and financial independence of one's own has liberated women from certain oppressive situations.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but career doesn't cut it when you're hitting your mid to late 30s and you're like, oh, I kind of like want to be at home and I want to. It's not quite deep enough as maybe having family connections and maybe even children and that kind of thing.
I'm older. I'm 42, and a lot of my friends who in my 20s were like, I never want to have kids. They got to 30s and they're like, there is a physical. When I see a child, I'm like, oh, it's like, and
it's
even though
deep.
I didn't think I wanted it, I see them and there's something in me that I'm like, and not saying that they were like, oh, that means I have to have a kid, but they were like, there is something there that you're like, it's hard to deny.
It's primal. It's like deeper than deep. And it's also I question how much that disdain for the idea of children, particularly in younger people, particularly in younger women, is socially constructed because one, maybe of a bad childhood or a bad experience with parents and family and whatever, but also with the encouragement of mainstream culture, which is like very pro-feminist, very career. It's very anti-traditional. It's very anti all of those kind of values that people used to have in the 50s or whatever. And I understand the need to break down some of them, but I think it was a bit detrimental in some ways because there is obviously something real to having kids. And the problem is that once you hit a point where you realise that it is often too late for a lot of people. It's not like you can just change your mind.
But also wasn't feminism about choice as well? So if you want to choose to work, you could choose to work. And if you want to choose to stay with a family, you get that choice.
It was about choice. It sort of just didn't really manifest that way, I think, for a lot of people. This is a really big can of worms to get into. But basically that's kind of where I'm at, is feeling a little bit disheartened by the promise of all of that.
Yeah.
Because I guess, then people turn around and go, you can't have it all, because a lot of the time women who are successful, there's all these cliches like then they don't have a family or their husband's cheating on them or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's, But so I don't know, because basically what I would say is that a lot of the time when you are picking your career, which you often do in your 20s, you are stalling the family thing. So it's like it's not about a choice. It's just you are pushing it back. And then you realise that you've made that choice without knowing it, without consciously going, do I want one or the other?
Yeah.
It's like I've been doing this every day and now I don't have the choice of a family, for example.
Would it make it an easier decision to make which burner if it doesn't mean you turn it off forever, but it's just
Can you turn it low?
You're not concentrating on it. It can look after itself.
Yeah, well, I've done that with friends and family the majority of my career.
Yeah.
My family were pretty distant with me, and my friends, I missed every wedding, I missed everything. So I should probably turn those up if I want to not go to hell. But I don't want to turn down my career, so I don't know. And then health, it's just not an option. I think maybe I'll just have them all on like a medium heat.
All right.
Okay.
You're gaming the system.
Here's the thing. I talk about this way too much. There was a time there, I'm a medium eggs person.
Yep.
You know how you get like soft and hard?
Yeah.
There was a time there when you would ask for medium eggs. I'm talking 5-10 years ago. And people said it wasn't possible. They'd be like, sorry, it's just soft or hard.
That coagulate, is that the right word? When they're kind of
coagulate?
Yeah, is that it? Coagulated?
Yeah, coagulated.
I think it's a certain degree. I think it's like 78-degree eggs or something like that, yeah.
And I was like, but the chef can do soft and the chef can do hard.
Yeah.
We just clarify that and we like, yes, those are the two options. I'm like, so in between those, there's a time that they could just stop. They're like, no, sorry. And I was like, And then it changed because everyone decided they were good at service.
Yeah.
And it was like, you can suddenly. So I'm wondering if the having it all but just maybe on a medium heat is something that's possible.
So we've had the 4-burner theory, then Ben Brown, the footballer, brought in the rubber ball, glass ball theory, and now
I don't know the rubber ball.
I'll tell you off here. Hayley Mary is bringing the soft, medium, and hard-boiled egg.
The medium burner.
It's all on medium. Hey, thanks for doing this, and thanks for coming in a second time to do it. Hey, your songs. Let's talk about your music then, and
my music.
Yeah, so you've got new music out right now.
I do. Where are we?
Well, this is coming out tomorrow now.
Okay, cool. So I don't have to pretend I'm in the future.
No.
Or the past or something.
Yeah.
That's so great. How professional. Tomorrow, yes, I've got one song out at the moment called One Last Drag, which is obviously not a very healthy song about cigarettes, but it's self-conscious about the glorifying of the vices that it does, but it's also kind of a debating. It's what's the word? It's reflective on how addictive and horrible cigarettes really are, even though I'm still somewhat addicted to them. So yeah, I've got that out, and then I'm bringing out shortly this song which is unannounced, so I'm just announcing it here, called
exclusive.
The Ballad of Ruby Wednesday.
Nice.
Which ponders some of the things I was saying then, but also other things. And then, look, I can't say any more, but let's just say that I've had a couple of years off releasing, and I plan to remedy that.
Excellent. Hey, and go and listen to the whole back catalogue. There's a whole bunch of music that Hayley's put out, so go listen to it all.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks everyone for listening to this episode. If you would like to support the podcast, join the Patreon. Go to patreon.com/DYKWIA. That's patreon.com/DYKWIA. And you hear all the pod freshers and also the Comedy Festival Don't You Know Who I Am's. They're up there as well. You're all the best. Thank you, Hayley, for doing this. We'll see you next time.